Large crowd, we're going to ask you to be very quiet so we can get through this. We don't have microphones, but I know the candidates, their voices will all carry. Well, okay, we have 3 of them here now. First, I'd like to ask one of our newest members, Max Linn, to lead us in a Pledge of Allegiance.
Everybody together?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would you remain standing for a moment of silence for the over 4,000 troops that we have lost in Iraq and the wounded that we'll be living with for many, many years to come.
Amen.
Thank you. We're going to take about 5 minutes to get rid of some of our club business, and we're going to get right into the debate. We're going to ask you to cease all your conversation, and if everybody's quiet, you'll be able to hear what's going on, I hope. On all the tables I have put copies, this is for club members, I put copies of the minutes, and on the back is a copy of the Treasurer's report. And I'd like to have For those of you who have never been here before, we have membership applications in the back where you came in and signed in. Our treasurer, Jim O'Gara, is back there. We have a nice level of membership starting at $5 for students and $15 for senior citizens, up to $100 for you big bowlers that want to spend that kind of money. So if you want to take an application and bring it home, or you want to fill it out tonight and get it be a member tonight, if you don't have the money, you can send them the money and bring it next month. We meet here the first Wednesday of every month. We usually don't have this type of a crowd, but maybe we will in the future. I have a couple quick announcements. Karen has an announcement, our secretary, Karen Hodgins, about our salute to the Grand Dame of the St. Petersburg Democratic Party.
Why don't you introduce them so everybody knows who she is?
I said Karen Hodgins, our secretary.
Oh,
Thank you, Betsy. Be quiet.
Edna, where are you? Is Edna in the very back? Edna, can you stand, please? Edna? The beautiful lady in the pink shirt is Edna McCall, and she's the Grand Dame of the St. Petersburg Democratic Party because she's been around forever, and she and her husband helped start this club many, many years ago. And she knows lots and lots of intriguing stories about the Democratic Party. And on June 14th, we would like to invite everyone to attend our salute to Edna McCall. It's going to be at 2 o'clock at Grazzi's, which is at Baywalk. And it's going to be a trip down memory lane with Edna, and she's going to share her stories with us, and we're going to share stories about Edna. And it's going to be a salute to Edna. So we would like to invite everyone to attend our event for Edna on June 14th. The time is 2 o'clock.
Okay. We'll have more information. We'll have more information on that next month. Also on the tables, if you can find it with all the material from candidates and other things, there's a flyer about a tri-county picnic, Pasco, Hillsborough, and Pinellas County. If you want to pass that around, it's up in Tarpon Springs on May 31st. The chair of the party asked me to make that announcement. Our speaker for our meeting next month will be Cheryl Schroeder, who is the Secretary of the West Coast Labor Council. Did I get that right? Something like that. She and Mara Weinstein, who is a SIEU organizer coming down here to organize for the November elections. Before we go any further, I want to make some disclosures so that everybody knows. Sam has been a member of this club for over 2 years. Max has been a member for about a month. And Bob is going to be a member soon. Also, I gave $500 to Sam Simpson's campaign, which he ran 2 years ago. I have not given any candidates any donation this time yet. So just so that you know. Because of that, I've asked one of our members who is not a resident of District 10, Steve Lipinski, who was up in New Hampshire and New Jersey working on the Clinton campaign, Hillary Clinton campaign. And I'll turn this over to Steve. Steve's going to run this debate. We've been back and forth with these candidates now for 2 weeks and getting intensive as every moment gets closer, and they've been changing the rules among themselves as best they can. They all want to have an advantage, but I think Steve worked it out real well. He'll be fair, and I'll be out of your hair, and I've got one card just like everybody else. Let me make that announcement before I get out of here. Anyone who signed in got a 3x5 card. You can ask one question of one candidate. If you take those cards, there's 3 containers right here in the center of the room, one for each candidate. If you put the cards in those containers, about a half an hour or 45 minutes from now, Steve will go through those cards and we'll have questions from the candidates for subjects that haven't been covered. So if you haven't signed in and you don't have a card, go back where you came in, get the card, and put it in that container. You're going to have probably a half an hour, 20 minutes to do that. Thank you. Steve Lipinski, it's all yours.
Thank you. Hey, Jim, you want your cake?
No.
No? I can't believe he's going to make me look at that.
Distraction.
Thank you.
Before we get going, I just want to let everyone know what the ground rules that have been agreed to are. Okay, here are the ground rules. First, each candidate will make an opening statement. They can spend up to 5 minutes doing that. We'll then enter an open format where the candidates are given 2-minute blocks of time to speak about issues that other candidates have raised or new issues they want to. We're going to stay in alphabetical order, although we'll be rotating through starts. However, if one candidate gets a direct accusation of some sort, we'll go out of order to give them 30 seconds to respond. When the discussion among these candidates is exhausted, we're going to take a brief break, approximately 5 minutes. At that time, I'm going to go over to the questions that the members of the audience have submitted to grab some new questions that address issues that the candidates have not brought up to this point. And then we're going to reconvene, and they will be answering some of your questions. And then each candidate will have 1 minute to make a closing statement. Also, although we haven't prohibited applause, I would like to remind you that we do not have microphones, and it's already requiring us to speak very loud to make it to the back of the room. So please keep applause to a minimum. Maybe when we end a round, that'd be a great time to applaud all the candidates. In fact, you're welcome to do that now. Hey. We have a timekeeper up front, and I know he spoke with all 3 of you already about this, but when you see the yellow card, you're down to 30 seconds. When you see the red card, I'm going to ask you to finish your sentence, or I actually won't ask you, but once that period gets hit, that's the end. We're moving on.
Where's our timer in front?
He is right here. So when you see the yellow card, you know, right out of time.
I was looking for it. I missed it.
So, I'm going to now introduce the candidates.
Bob Hackworth.
We have Samm Simpson, just finishing what she had mentioned. She's calls herself an independent thinking Democrat, and she challenged Congressman Young in 2006 and received 34% of the vote. And finally, Max Linn, a leader of national prominence in the financial arena. And now we're going to move into the opening statements, starting with the Mayor, Bob Hackworth. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. And I did ask if I could just, on behalf of the 3 candidates, thank the St. Petersburg Democratic Club for hosting this great event, this opportunity, and we appreciate Jim and Steve, your work. And now, if you've got to spend that time, please do. Although I got to tell you, this brings back really bad memories for me because we had a mayor in Dunedin who used to have the very strict rule that you had a 3-minute time limit that you could speak at a city commission meeting, and he had a machine and he had a buzzer on that machine, and of course citizens would walk up and they were shaking already, and then that light would go on, and you know, a yellow light would come on, and then a red light, and then all of a sudden out of the blue, this buzzer would go off, and the poor people would jump right out of their stand. And so as mayor, I changed that policy because I think it's important that the citizens be allowed to speak to their representatives in government. And now, how much time did I waste on that story? Because you may have missed my really good stuff, but I am the mayor of Dunedin, and I'm real proud to serve that great city. I hope that a lot of you have had the chance to visit. I know that there's some people from Dunedin here, and I sure appreciate the fact that you've come down to see 2 of your residents, right, from Dunedin. And I think if you've had a chance to visit, or if you've learned about the good work that we've done in Dunedin, you have to be somewhat impressed and agree that it's a very well-run city and is widely proclaimed to be one of the best coastal communities on the west coast of Florida. And what we've done in Dunedin is to build a community. And we did that by being well-governed. We committed ourselves to preserving and protecting the charm and the character of a small town in a huge metropolitan area. And we responsibly and sensibly planned growth and development. We protected the redevelopment of our waterfront. And it's a community that has led the way towards green technology, which is a big issue on the national level. And we have embraced the use of renewable energy sources for our city facilities and our city fleet. And of course, we did get rid of that buzzer, so that's a big thing to remember. Last Friday night, I was honored because I was presented an award for the city of Dunedin for being named one of only 3 cities in the state of Florida that had received the Green Government certification from a great organization that's doing a great job of trying to promote that sustainability concept in government. And my city was also just recently named the most walkable small city in the nation by a national publication because of the pedestrian-friendly features that we have in our town. And so I think few would argue that it's a very good community, and we've done a really good job of community building. Congressman Bob Hackworth is going to try to do a better job of nation building. And I don't mean nation building in the sense of Iraq or locations around the globe. I mean right here, St. Petersburg, Pinellas County, and America. Because we have, I think, we can all agree, some really big problems that are going on in our nation. The struggling economy is teetering on recession. I don't think anybody can argue otherwise. We have thousands, if not millions, of Americans who are facing the threat of foreclosure of their homes. And that's just a really sad commentary on a great nation like the United States. There's escalating health care costs that have resulted in 47 million people not having any health insurance coverage at all. You've seen bailouts for Wall Street and not a single bailout or help for those on Main Street. And of course, we have a very dubious and costly war in Iraq that I believe has to end. Now, having said all of that, none of that is going to change. We're not going to fix that at all if you send the same politician back to Washington year after year. And that's just a fact, and we might as well just get used to that, all right? Now, I also suggest that Democrats are not going to beat Bill Youngs unless they send a different type of challenger against him in the fall election. And so I'm running for Congress because I think I have the vision of a bright future for America. I know that I have the leadership skills to make that vision a reality, and so I've placed my name on the ballot. I think people in this district are truly looking for a citizen legislator who could go to Washington, try to get some things done for the people back home, you know, not be there for 40 years like our current congressman is attempting to be. That's a professional politician. The founders of our nation never envisioned a professional politician who lives full-time in Washington, D.C. They envisioned, I think, a small city mayor who is has a well-governed city. Remember, I told you you're going to miss my good stuff now. Yeah, I think they envision a citizen legislature like myself who would go to Washington and get something done for the people back home. So thank you for allowing me that. For 5 minutes. Hello, everybody. And I know I'm new here at the Democratic Party, and I find it interesting that the newspaper has highlighted me as the millionaire candidate. And so I'd like to share with everybody, because the people who've known me for a long time brought up a good idea. They said people really don't know who you are, where you've come from. I'm from St. Petersburg. I've been here all my life. My dad's from here, and my grandfather has a monument in the downtown St. Petersburg Park. But the interesting thing was, I didn't have enough money to go to the junior college or college. So I'm willing to bet that growing up, I was in the situation with less money than probably anybody here who grew up, with some exceptions. But it didn't come from money. I grew up, my dad had a used car lot, and I remember getting up and working on that used car lot. I think the most expensive car was $500. And I had to go up there, lift the hood, change the batteries, siphon gas out of one car to put it in the other, change the flat tires, pour the gas in the carburetor, and try to start these junker cars that would never start. And I knew one thing, that I didn't want to stay there. And I wanted to go out and I wanted to experience the American dream, which is the pursuit of happiness, and go make a living, and go save some money and get financially independent. And so I went off to the junior college, paid my way through college. It was not uncommon at our house to be sitting at the dinner table and the lights go out during dinner because the electric bill didn't get paid. So that's where I became an extreme saver. And I saved, and when I went to the junior college, I paid my way through junior college. I studied aviation. I know I wanted a 4-year degree, but I didn't have the money for a 4-year degree. So they offered me a job as a flight instructor at Louisiana Tech. With some loans and grants, I ended up going off to college. And after college, I came home because I was our student class president at Louisiana Tech. And I said, you know, I'd like to be involved in politics because what I love to study more than anything else is American history. And that's one of the reasons that brings me to the political arena today. So I'm not new to the great experiment called America. That's my real passion, way over financial planning. But I had to make a living. I got a degree in aviation. And I ended up meeting this guy. You know, people say you don't believe in luck or you make your luck. Well, I believe in luck because I sat down and met a guy who was the vice president of an investment firm who I jumped on board after college. And I took that same athletic sports focus and I focused it on business. And through a lot of seminars and hard work, I built up a business, left there after 10 years, started my own business, and things went very well. And my whole career as a financial planner, my whole career, 99% of it, was working with people who are retired on fixed incomes. So I look forward to the conversation during the year about the challenges the retiree market have, because that's been my profession. And then after 10 years, I opened my own business. 10 years later, a company came down from New York and offered me some money, and I took it and I sold the business. And I had saved some money, I acquired some money, and I was fortunate, or unfortunate, I was fortunate enough where I didn't have a family, so I was able to save money. So that brings me to the title in the paper of me having all this money. Well, I did it the old-fashioned way. I worked real hard for it, and I saved every dime I earned. And I know that when I left college, I met this guy who was a developer, and he says, you want to get involved in politics? I said, I'd love to. And he says, there's this lady running for county commissioner, Barbara Todd. In 1983, my first year out of college, I got involved in her campaign as a Republican. And so that's how I ended up as a Republican. But as tonight and throughout, you'll see that all my values, back then and today, are very democratic. And in fact, it's hard to be a Republican in today's marketplace with the challenges we have. And so I ended up in the Republican Party, and I realized as an American history student, and I remember all of a sudden business started growing, and yes, I worked with a lot of wealthy clients. And I remember on private jets, working with people and seeing the level of corruption and un-American things of our political system, both in the Republican side and the Democratic side. and I saw firsthand that it was about money. And so that's why I pursued the last 10, 15 years with term limits, because I feel people both on the Republican side and Democratic side get up there, they run into the system, which is about money. So my talk tonight will be talking about the system and how we need to change the system on a national basis, and how I envision getting up there and providing the leadership and bringing it back to the visions and dreams of our founding fathers, which is a government for the people, by the people, not by the corporation, and that's what we have today. Thank you. And next we have Sam for 5 minutes.
My lips won't keep Thank you so much for being here. I'm running for Congress because the truth matters. The Constitution matters. You matter, and your grandchildren matter. 2 weeks ago, the Beach Theater showed a documentary called Taxi to the Dark Side. It was the story of a 22-year-old Afghan taxi driver who was taken in by the Afghani militia, turned over to the Americans. Within 5 days at Bagram, he was beaten to death. This was false pretenses, false evidence. This was long before Abu Ghraib, long before hundreds of innocent men were taken to Guantanamo Bay because they were paid bounty to do so. A few days after 9/11, Dick Cheney appeared on Meet the Press. He said, we have to work the dark side, if you will. We have to spend time in the shadows. A lot of what needs to be done will need to be done quietly, without any discussion, using sources and methods available to our intelligence agencies. This is still happening today. I've been in Pinellas County for over a quarter century. I yearn for the America of my youth. How about you? I grew up in the cornfields of Iowa. I learned about sowing and reaping. I was 10 when Kennedy died, 14 with Dr. King, 15 with Bobby. I saw the police. I saw the civil rights movement. My father understood that in the physical world, the only thing that you have, freedom, is an economic one. When people feel oppressed, hungry, sick, they don't have money for food, medicine, shelter, they become angry. They become violent. Greed is another side of economics. In this world, greed is murder. My dad owned a junkyard, but my sister and I called him a dealer in secondary industrial raw materials. He had 20 acres of windows and cars and wheels and chassis. This was before the day that recycling became vogue. Well, we learned a little bit about recycling, but my dad told me stories about the Depression. You couldn't buy a job. His father lost his farm for lack of a $3 mortgage payment. They had to shoot his pony because he had no food, money for food, for feed. Was your family marked by the Great Depression? The Government Accounting Office says that even if we stop the war, if we roll back the tax cuts, if we stop all fraud and waste and greed, if we stop earmarks, we still do not have room to stop the overcoming onslaught of a $55 trillion deficit with 80 million baby boomers moving through the system in the next 20 years. We have to be honest about these numbers. The former Comptroller General David Walker said that mortgaging the future of our grandchildren is not just fiscal irresponsibility, it's immoral. This means we have to look at tough choices, and we have to look at congresspeople who have a heart of compassion and who have economic reasoning. I worked at Raymond James for 17 years. I had a Series 7 license. I interviewed thousands of economists, market managers, strategists, theorists. I worked for Pinellas County Economic Development, where I worked in small business and entrepreneurship. I was a single parent for 20 years. I know where the cracks are for families. I've been touched by grief. Maybe your family has too. The Iraq War is not the only war in this country. In 2006, I ran for Congress because Congressman Young had forgotten his role as the upholder and defender of the Constitution of the United States, and someone to stand up against a rogue administration out of control. Many in Washington are mirrored in a prism of lobbyists, lies, greed, secrecy, kickbacks, special interest, media manipulation, elitism, false terror paradigms, war crimes, and impunity. It didn't happen overnight, and it's going to take us a generation to take our country back. Dismantling the horns of empire means a change of consciousness. It means a moral revolution. It might even mean a spiritual revelation.
But we can revolutionize our energy sources. We can retool our manufacturing base. We can rebuild our infrastructure. We can repair our health care, renew our food supply, take care of our veterans, our seniors, those who cannot take care of themselves. We need a visionary leadership, and we need a wide-awake electorate. Can you see a vision of a brighter future? I can. Read more, watch TV less, ride a bike, eliminate debt, store a little extra food. Support local economies, get to know your neighbors and your representatives. The Declaration of Independence says this: governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Did you give your consent for this?
No.
Let's take our country back.
Yes.
This is the struggle for the soul of our nation. And I am a prisoner of hope. I stand before you as a prisoner of hope. It's about us. It's about we the people, and it's about taking back our country, and I am Samm Simpson, and I want to be your voice in Congress.
Now, before we enter the second round, I just wanted to invite the other two candidates to actually move in front of the table if they like to, since there is trouble. But I don't want to eat into our debating time, so I'd rather do it at a planned time when we're going to take a break. In the second round, we're going to open the forum up for them to go Lincoln Douglas style, even though we have Lincoln, Douglas, and, I don't know, Ms. Roosevelt. It may get a little tricky with three candidates, but we're going to open up the forum, and we will go out of order from time to time if necessary, and I'll give 30 seconds when need be, but typically it will be 2 minutes per candidate. And we're going to start off with Max in this round.
Same 30 seconds. Say that again. Same 30 seconds.
Well, 2 minutes.
This is just what we're talking about. What do you want to bring up?
You know, picking up where I left off, you know, what I think is important and what we've lost track of in America today, as I've studied the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and American history for all of my life, if there's one cornerstone that I really think our founding fathers were talking about when they talked about a country for the people, by the people, one of the cornerstones was humanity. It was the pursuit of happiness to find a civilization that has never existed before, because really what we're living today is an experiment in the form of government and society. That's really what we're in. And I really feel the founding fathers who wrote the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, they wrote it back 230 years ago, but it wasn't for them because our government was so limited. The government was limited and the people had all the liberties. But I truly feel that why the Constitution and Bill of Rights was written back then was for a time like now, where the people of America feel like, what's going on? We are kidnapping people, torturing people. We can go through all the things that are going wrong, which are numerous today. But I really feel that the documents were written for a time where we, the people, could get together and say, we don't know what to do. We're not sure what the problems are. What can we do? We can refer back to those written documents. And one of the cornerstones, one of the most important things with those documents, when you read the Founding Fathers, was the spirit of the people. The spirit of the people. This campaign is not really about me and Bill Young. I think it's a much bigger issue. It's an issue about where is America going as a country and as a civilization. Where are we as a people going with humanity? And so on a lot of the subjects tonight, I'm going to bring it back to those very facts about humanity and the spirit of the people. Just yesterday, I was picking up a pizza, and I walked into Gigi's, and on the TV was the football game, the Dancing with the Stars, another sporting event, and then I'm reading in the paper that another kid is killed. And so we have it seems like an interest of looking, and we're so involved in making a living and raising our family that we're not focusing on the important thing, which is we the people. Because the reality is, Congress doesn't have the power. We have the people. And so I'm going to share with you tonight my philosophy and how I want to get to we the people, not only here in this district, but in America, and really lead to change, not only here, but in Congress. Thank you.
Sam, you're next. 2 minutes.
Okay, thanks. The biggest threat to our country is not Islamofascism. The biggest threat to our country is an economic one. Bankruptcy, because of healthcare costs, can hit 50% of the American people. Healthcare costs are the biggest, and not having health insurance is probably the largest, healthcare costs and health insurance for people is probably the #1 issue when it comes to the solvency of our country. I mean, of course we're going to end the war, of course we're going to make people accountable. You can convict for war crimes after they're out of office, and we'll probably do that too. I pray the American people will raise up and do that. But let's talk about Big Pharma. The first bill I'm going to write when I get to Congress is going to be banning pharmaceutical ads from television and radio. And don't tell me we can't do it. We took cigarettes off of TV and radio back when I was a lot younger, and we can take pharmaceutical ads. I am tired of Big Pharma telling me if my leg shakes I have to take a pill. And I'm tired of Big Pharma telling somebody that if you've got something in your head that's not supposed to be there, they've taken every single portion of humanity and made it an illness. And it's enough. Stop Big Pharma, and we're going to stop that, and we have to bring in the next generation up with food without maybe a little less aspartame, and a little less high fructose corn syrup, and a little less Pepsi and soda in the high school rooms. We got to attack our health of our nation from top and from bottom. We have to bring the next generation up with whole, healthy foods. By the way, I am against genetic modification of food, and we have to rise up and stop that too, and save our vitamins and our minerals, and make the FDA accountable to human beings, not to Big Pharma. So there's a lot I want to do, but I think healthcare is one of the biggest issues, and like I said, I want to be your voice in Washington. Thank you.
Thank you. Listen, I think that you two have spoke more eloquently on the issues and the Constitution and the things that are important about a representative form of democracy in this country. I congratulate you both for being so eloquent, but I'm going to disagree and tell you it is about Bill Young. It definitely is about Bill Young. He has been there 38 years. Not a thing is going to change if he goes back. And if he goes back and then picks his predecessor, we may have another one for 38 years. So it is time to send a new representative to Washington, D.C., and he needs to be a citizen legislature who will do exactly what you have talked about as far as representing the people. But you have to win the election. We haven't won an election in 38 years, and that's the problem, okay? So I want to be the guy that can beat Bill Young, and that's the bottom line to the whole issue as far as I'm concerned. Thank you.
I do want to ask you, do you want to do another round in 2 minutes, or would you like to move into questions?
What did you learn from?
Minutes or questions from the audience? 2 more minutes? All right. Next round will begin with Sam.
Well, I find it interesting that Mr. Hackworth talks about how we have to beat Bill Young. I mean, I was on the ballot in 2006 trying to beat Bill Young. Nobody else was on the ballot. You know, when you're looking for a leader, you have to look for somebody who's a little bit ahead of the curve. You have to look for somebody who's not afraid to be slaughtered by the media. You have to look for somebody who's not afraid to tell the truth and seek the truth and speak the truth and research the truth. And that's what my campaign was about in 2006, and that's what my campaign is about now. So, of course, we're going to beat Bill Young. But right now we're in a primary, and you've got a choice between 3 of us. In 2006, I got 67,923 votes. In 2006, in Pinellas County, Max Linn got 10,000 votes, 10,819. And when Mr. Hackworth ran for mayor, he got 4,719. I think the numbers are in my favor. Thank you.
Let's talk about numbers, because again, I think that this is about whether Democrats send the same candidate to run against Bill Young, or they send somebody who has a chance to win an election. I got 4,000, what's the number? 4,000 votes. That was 87% of the electorate in Dunedin, all right? When I ran for city commissioner as an unknown, against a 25-year incumbent who had his name on the building and had his name on the parks, a little bit like Mr. Young in this county. I went door to door and I had a message that resonated with voters, and they chose me by 67% of the electorate, and I was elected. So I have won elections. And I'm sorry, 36% is not ever going to win an election in this a congressional race against Bill Young. It's going to have to be 51%. I'm the guy that can get there. I've done it before. I'm going to do it again, and that's the best platform I can take with you Democrats. Thank you. Well, I guess that leaves me for last. And you know, I've also been out there as for governor, so I don't want to go into all that detail of past. We've got three great candidates up here, all wanting change, and we're going to get into the issues. And yes, I'm against. I personally feel that we're going to be pretty much lock in step if I hand out the brochure what I'm for and what I'm against. But just with 2 minutes here, I'm going to come back to the premise of, yes, it is a campaign against Bill Young. Absolutely. And I realize that in running against Bill Young and taking him out, it carries on with my philosophy of the 2008 Change in Congress campaign. Because I really feel there comes a time in American history, and it's happened in the past, where we're really at. I really believe we're at one of those critical turning points in American history as we look back. And we're really going to look back into civilization and saying, at this critical juncture, when corporate America, and you know, a lot of people say the system's broken, but the system's working better than it ever has in Congress. It's more fine-tuned and polished and representative than it's ever been. But it represents big multinational companies, and it represents them very well. And we may be unhappy with the current political process, but there's a whole group very happy with it. And that's corporate America, who's making hundreds of billions in net profit while the people are fed baloney sucking for air at the gas pump. And so I'm going to address, as your questions come up, I'm still going to come back to, we need a paradigm shift in our country, and not only in this race, but in Congress as a whole, if we're going to move forward as a great nation pursuing happiness and a real representative form of government for the people, by the people, not the corporation. So you'll see all my answers come back, and we'll address the issues, but it's going to come back to how do we get that change in Congress. Thank you.
I think now would be a good time for a break. I know we're not going to get to but a fraction of the questions that you submitted, but I'll have as much time for that as possible. Plus, I want to give us a chance to get this mic hooked up. So, okay. Well,
quickly, while Steve goes through those questions, and then we're going to go into the question and answer period, and it looks like we're going to probably have about a half an hour for that question and answer period.
who's that sitting next to you?
And remember, there's still time to file for you folks who want to run for something. It's too late to run for Congress against these folks, but there's lots of other seats open in Congress. Okay, Karen's going to introduce the candidates. Just to raise your hand, let them know who you are. Some other time in the future we'll have you all back. Someone asked me to make an announcement. There is a primary election on August 26th for these three candidates for Congress and other races throughout the county. So get behind your candidate, write them a check, volunteer for their campaign. Karen.
I'd like to introduce our wonderful candidates that are running for various offices. And I'm just going to tell you their name, and they can wave to you, and at least you'll get to know who they are. Louder, okay. Is there a mic?
No mic.
Okay, sorry.
We have some other quick celebrities. I'm going to take 1 minute. We have a delegate for Obama to the convention, Jim Jackson. We have the best county treasurer we've had since I can ever recall sitting here with us. Keep your checkbooks in your pocket because he make you write out a check. Introduce yourself.
Mark Hennessy, thank you.
We have a former St. Petersburg city councilman in the back there. Jay or Cedar, maybe a city councilman in the future, we don't know. Jay? Thank you. And we have a former party chair, Ed Helms. I'm sorry, I'm going to turn it back over to Steve. Seems to be doing a good job. I'm standing in the back, so keep raising your voice.